Imagine boarding your first-class flight, exhausted after a long week, only to find someone else sitting in your seat, acting like they own the place. That's exactly what happened to me. At first, I tried to stay calm, politely asking her to move, and that's when everything escalated. She refused, harassed the flight attendants, and even tried to humiliate me in front of everyone. Her arrogance was unbelievable. But what she didn't realize was that I wasn't just another passenger, and that her entitlement had consequences. From first-class chaos to airport confrontations, to a public legal battle exposing years of deceit, this is the story of how arrogance meets karma, and how a simple boarding pass can become a battlefield. Watch until the end to see her face go white when reality finally caught up, and why first class is about more than just a seat. I never thought a simple boarding pass could expose someone's true character. That morning, I was already exhausted before even reaching the airport. It had been one of those weeks, tight deadlines, sleepless nights, and a last-minute business trip that couldn't be postponed. When my company upgraded my seat to first class, I won't lie, I felt relieved. Not excited, just relieved. I needed the space, the quiet, the ability to breathe for a few hours without someone's elbow digging into my ribs. The airport was buzzing like usual, rolling suitcases, crying babies, muffled announcements echoing through the terminal. I checked in smoothly, past security, and headed toward the lounge. Everything felt normal, peaceful even. That peace wouldn't last. When boarding was announced, I waited patiently, letting priority passengers go first. I wasn't in a rush. First class wasn't going anywhere, or so I thought. As I stepped onto the plane, the familiar scent of recycled air and coffee greeted me. A flight attendant smiled politely and pointed me down the left aisle. "Row 2, seat A," she said. I nodded, thanking her, and rolled my carry-on forward. But when I reached my seat, I stopped dead. Someone was sitting there. Not just sitting, settled. Shoes off. Designer handbag placed neatly beside her. Seat fully reclined. Champagne already in hand. She looked completely at home. She was a middle-aged woman, perfectly styled hair, oversized sunglasses still on despite being indoors. She wore an expression that said she belonged there, like first class was her natural habitat. For a second, I wondered if I had made a mistake. I double-checked my boarding pass. Row 2. Seat A. First class. That was mine. "Excuse me," I said calmly, forcing a polite smile. "I think you're in my seat." She didn't even look up. "Oh," she waved her hand dismissively. "I'm in the right place." Her tone was sharp, final, as if the conversation was already over. I blinked. "I'm sorry, but—" She finally turned toward me, sliding her sunglasses down just enough to look me over. From head to toe. Slowly. Critically. "No offense," she said, lips curling slightly, "but this is first class." I felt a few nearby passengers glance over. "Yes," I replied, still calm, "and that's why I'm here." She laughed. A short, humorless sound. "Sweetheart," she said, "you probably misread your ticket. Economy is further back." That's when I realized. This wasn't a mistake. This was assumption. I held up my boarding pass. "Row 2, seat A. That's the seat." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "Flight attendants make mistakes all the time," she snapped. I already sat down. "Just take another seat." Another seat. In first class. As if there were extras just lying around. "I'd like my assigned seat," I said firmly now. Her jaw tightened. "Listen," she hissed, lowering her voice. "I paid for this seat. I'm not moving because someone like you thinks they belong here." Someone like me. The words hit harder than I expected. Before I could respond, she pressed the call button aggressively. A flight attendant hurried over. "Is everything okay here?" "This man is trying to take my seat," the woman said loudly, playing the victim flawlessly. "I've already shown my ticket." The attendant turned to me, polite but cautious. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" I handed it over. She looked at it. Then at the seat number. Then at the woman. "Ma'am," the attendant said carefully, "this seat is assigned to him." The woman's smile froze. That's impossible, she snapped. I'm always in first class. The attendant remained professional. May I please see your boarding pass, ma'am? The woman hesitated. Just for half a second. Then she reached into her bag, rummaging far longer than necessary, before pulling out a crumpled boarding pass and thrusting it forward. The attendant studied it. Her expression changed. Ma'am, she said slowly, your seat is 34B. Economy. The color drained from the woman's face. That can't be right, she stammered. There must be a mix-up. I'm afraid not, the attendant replied. 34B is toward the back of the plane. The woman looked around. Other passengers were now openly watching. Her face turned white. Embarrassment. Shock. Panic. This is ridiculous, she snapped, standing up abruptly. I demand to speak to the captain. The attendant remained calm. Ma'am, you'll need to move to your assigned seat so we can prepare for departure. For the first time, the woman looked at me again. Not with arrogance, but with fear. Because now everyone knew. And this was only the beginning. The cabin had gone unusually quiet. You know that silence, the kind that feels heavy, like everyone's pretending not to stare but absolutely is. Every eye in first class was fixed on the woman standing beside my seat, her expensive handbag clutched tightly as if it could somehow save her dignity. I'm not sitting back there, she snapped, pointing vaguely toward the economy section. Those seats are cramped. I have back problems. The flight attendant kept her voice calm, but firmer now. Ma'am, I understand your concern, but you need to move to your assigned seat immediately. I will not, the woman said loudly. This is discrimination. Discrimination. The word echoed in my head. I almost laughed, but I didn't. I just stood there, holding my carry-on, letting her dig her own hole. Another attendant joined us, a senior one judging by the confidence in her posture. What seems to be the issue? She asked. This man, the woman said, pointing at me like I was a criminal, is trying to steal my first-class seat. The senior attendant looked at me, then at my boarding pass, then at the seat number. Sir, you are assigned to this seat, she said clearly. Then she turned to the woman. Ma'am, you are in the wrong cabin. The woman's face flushed bright red now. This is unbelievable, she muttered. I fly all the time. I've never been treated like this. I finally spoke again. Then you should know how seat assignments work. A few people snickered. Her head snapped toward me. Excuse me? You assumed this seat was yours. I continued calmly. It wasn't. That's enough, she snapped. I don't need a lecture from. She stopped herself mid-sentence. But the damage was done. The senior attendant straightened. Ma'am, you can either move to seat 34B now, or we will have to involve airport security. That word did it. Security. Her confident posture collapsed instantly. This is humiliating, she whispered, eyes darting around the cabin. Everyone staring. No one replied. Because she was right. They were. Slowly, reluctantly, she grabbed her bag, slipped her shoes back on, and stepped into the aisle. As she passed me, she leaned in close. You think you've won, she hissed. But people like you don't stay in first class for long. I met her eyes. I'm exactly where I belong. She looked away first. As she walked down the aisle toward economy, I noticed something else. Her boarding pass, still clenched in her hand, clearly marked Group 6. Not even premium economy. The attendants apologized to me repeatedly as I finally took my seat. One offered me a fresh glass of champagne. On the house, she said softly. I thanked her and settled in, thinking that was the end of it. I was wrong. 10 minutes later, just as the boarding doors were about to close, raised voices drifted from the back of the plane. You can't be serious, the same woman's voice shouted. This seat is unacceptable. Passengers groaned collectively. A man across the aisle leaned toward me. Let me guess, he whispered. She's back there causing chaos. I nodded. Moments later, a flight attendant hurried past us, her expression tense. Then another. Then the senior attendant again. The captain's voice soon came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, We're experiencing a slight delay while we resolve a seating issue. Thank you for your patience. The woman had escalated things. Again. 5 minutes turned into 10. People started sighing, checking watches, muttering under their breath. Finally, the senior attendant returned, this time with 2 uniformed airport security officers. A collective gasp rippled through the cabin. They headed straight toward the back. Even from where I sat, I could hear her protesting. You can't remove me. I paid for this flight. Yes, ma'am, one officer said calmly. And you're refusing to follow crew instructions. That's because they're wrong. Another pause. Then the words that sealed her fate. Ma'am, please gather your belongings. No. Wait, this is ridiculous. But it was too late. A few minutes later, she was escorted back through the cabin. Past first class. Past me. Her face was no longer red or white. It was empty. Defeated. No sunglasses. No confidence. No arrogance. Just humiliation. As she passed my seat, she didn't say a word. She didn't even look at me. The plane doors closed shortly after. The captain spoke again. Thank you for your patience. We are now ready for departure. The engines roared to life. And just like that, she was gone. The man across the aisle raised his glass toward me. Best in-flight entertainment I've seen all year. I smiled faintly. As the plane lifted off the runway, I leaned back, finally able to relax. But deep down, I couldn't stop thinking about her words. People like you don't stay in first class for long. I looked around at the calm, respectful passengers, at the attentive service, at the space I had earned, and I realized something important. First class wasn't about money. It was about mindset, and hers never belonged there. Once the plane leveled off, the cabin lights dimmed and first class returned to its calm, polished silence. Soft music played. Glasses clinked gently. The chaos from earlier felt unreal, like a bad dream fading with altitude. I tried to focus on work, opening my laptop and skimming through emails, but my mind kept drifting back to her. Not because I felt bad, but because something about her felt familiar. About 40 minutes into the flight, a flight attendant approached my seat again. This time, she leaned in slightly and lowered her voice. Sir, the captain would like to speak with you if you don't mind. That caught me off guard. Is something wrong? I asked. She smiled reassuringly. Not at all. Just a quick word. Curiosity replaced confusion as she led me toward the cockpit. I could feel other passengers watching, probably wondering what new drama was about to unfold. The captain turned around as I entered. He was a tall man in his late 40s, calm eyes, confident presence. Thank you for your patience earlier, he said, extending his hand. I wanted to personally apologize for the disruption. No problem. I replied honestly. You handled it professionally. He nodded, then hesitated for a moment. There's something else, he said carefully. The passenger who was removed, did you recognize her? That question hit harder than expected. I frowned. Why would I? He studied my face. Because she claimed you were the reason she lost her job 2 years ago. The air seemed to thicken. I'm sorry, what? The captain gestured for me to sit. She became extremely emotional once escorted off. She said you humiliated her before. Said you ruined her life by exposing her at a corporate event. A memory flashed in my mind. 2 years ago. A conference. A public presentation. And suddenly, I remembered. Her name surfaced like a ghost. Karen Whitmore. She'd been a regional director at a partner company, confident, loud, always talking over others. During a joint audit, I discovered falsified expense reports. Thousands of dollars misused. When confronted, she laughed it off. Until the board saw the evidence. She was fired on the spot. I exhaled slowly. I didn't ruin her life, I said quietly. I did my job. The captain nodded. That's what I assumed. But she seemed obsessed. That explained everything. The entitlement. The bitterness. The way she looked at me. Not like a stranger, but like an enemy she'd been waiting to face again. Back in my seat, the realization settled heavily. She didn't take my seat by accident. She took it on purpose. About an hour later, turbulence rocked the cabin lightly. Drinks were secured, seatbelts fastened. As the plane steadied, the senior attendant approached me again. "Sir," she said softly, "there's something you should know." I looked up. "Okay." She demanded to be rebooked onto another flight, the attendant continued. But she was placed on the no-fly review list pending investigation. For what? Disruptive behavior. Refusal to follow crew instructions. Verbal harassment. I nodded slowly. Actions have consequences. Later, as dessert was served, the man across the aisle leaned toward me again. "So," he said, grinning, "is it weird that I feel like we witnessed karma in real time?" I chuckled. "A little." He raised his fork. "To assigned seats." I raised my glass in return. As the flight continued, I reflected on how quickly entitlement crumbles when reality intervenes. How people mistake privilege for power, and how fragile that illusion really is. Just before landing, the captain made a final announcement thanking everyone for their patience and professionalism. As applause lightly filled the cabin, I felt something unexpected. Closure. Not because she was removed, but because she no longer had power over the narrative. When the plane touched down, I gathered my things calmly. As I stepped into the aisle, a flight attendant handed me a small envelope. "From the airline," she said with a smile. Inside was a voucher for a future first-class upgrade. I didn't need it, but the irony wasn't lost on me. As I walked through the terminal, I wondered where Karen was now. Probably angry. Probably blaming everyone else. Still convinced the world owed her something. But I knew the truth. First class doesn't start at the seat. It starts with humility. The moment I stepped off the plane, I thought it was finally over. Wrong again. The jet bridge was crowded, passengers shuffling forward, phones out, conversations buzzing. I adjusted my jacket, voucher still tucked in my pocket, and followed the flow toward immigration. That's when I heard it. "You." The voice was sharp, familiar, bitter. I stopped. Slowly, I turned around. Karen stood just a few feet away. She looked nothing like the woman from first class. Her hair was messy now, pulled back hastily. Her blazer was wrinkled. Her confidence, the armor she wore so proudly, was cracked. But her eyes, they burned with rage. "So it was you," she spat. I knew it. Passengers around us slowed, sensing drama. Some stopped completely. "I didn't do anything to you today," I said evenly. "You did this to yourself." She laughed bitterly. "Oh, please. You've been ruining my life since that conference." "I exposed fraud," I replied calmly. "That's not the same thing." Her face twisted. "You think you're better than me because you follow rules?" "No," I said. "I think consequences exist." That set her off. "You humiliated me on that plane," she shouted. "In front of everyone." "You sat in a seat that wasn't yours," I replied, "and refused to move." She stepped closer. Too close. "I lost everything because of you," she hissed. "My job." "My reputation." I met her gaze, without flinching. "You lost those when you falsified reports." Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. A nearby airport officer glanced our way. Alert now. Karen noticed. Her voice dropped. "You think this is over?" "It is for me," I said. She scoffed. "People like you always land on your feet." "I work for it," I replied. "You demand it." That was the final blow. Her shoulders sagged. For a split second, I saw it, not anger. Fear. Then the mask snapped back into place. "This isn't finished," she said, backing away. "You'll regret this." She turned and disappeared into the crowd. But something told me she wasn't done. At baggage claim, I spotted her again, arguing with airline staff. "I demand compensation," she yelled. I was treated unfairly. The staff member remained calm. "Ma'am, you were removed for violating safety protocols. This is discrimination." The word again. Security approached. Karen froze. The officer spoke firmly. "Ma'am, you need to lower your voice." "I have rights." "Yes," he replied. "And responsibilities." Other passengers whispered. Phones came out. She realized too late. She was losing control again. Please, she said suddenly, voice breaking. I just need help. The officer's tone softened slightly. We can help you calmly, or this will escalate. Tears welled in her eyes, not from remorse, from defeat. She nodded stiffly and followed them away. I watched from a distance, feeling no triumph, just finality. As I collected my luggage, my phone buzzed. An email. Subject: urgent. Internal review update. It was from my company's legal team. Karen Whitmore had filed a formal complaint, accusing me of harassment and abuse of power. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course she had. But this time, I wasn't worried. Because unlike her, I had the truth. And proof.